So I think Bradford Ferguson of Rebellion Air, I think it would be, you know, we have to start here. We got to
Mhm.
take a minute. We have to express our continuing outrage at Elon's political efforts and his obnoxious posts on X and the horrific impact that it's having on the growth of Tesla sales, on their profits, and on the stock price. And he's just got to stop it, right?
Yeah, Elon is just killing Tesla.
So, with that out of the way,
I should say, yeah, I was wrong. Yeah, I thought profits would be worse.
oh,
Te Tesla definitely shocked
everybody.
the world.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're sitting on Tesla stock up 20% on the day, or is it more than
22.
that? And they some fundamental improvements in the business. So I was wrong to think it would be worse. And um it's funny how pessimistic people were coming into this call. I did a poll and I asked people if the stock would be down or up after earnings,
Right.
and 69% said down,
Of course they did.
20% said up. And so a net bearish of 49%, which is extremely bearish.
That
So
is
I I think Tesla deserves to have made the move that it made today just on the fundamentals improving in the business, and we'll get into that in a second.
yeah.
But I think on sentiment reasons, like I wouldn't be surprised if we see some follow through tomorrow and potentially going into Monday. And that's not investment advice or trading advice.
Right.
Trade at your own risk.
Yeah. So you may know that my analysis for years has been based that the stock's optionality, not the foundational fundamental, value, but the optionality on the stock has always been around FSD being 100%, up there, 100% useful as a go to sleep in your car thing. And additionally, the opportunity for a robotaxi business for owners of the cars. I've always believed that the optionality was that was what it was. So when you had the run up to all-time highs in 2021, it was because Elon said it's going to be next week. We're only 2 weeks away.
Mm.
And so that was the run up. Is everybody thought, okay, I can put my car out to work for me. And if I don't want to do that, I can just be chauffeured around wherever I go. And I really believe that's what did it. Well, going into 1010, we had that optionality back. And that's where we saw that run up to 262. And then then before 1010 got there, I think people kind of they got worried that wasn't, we weren't going to get what we wanted out of 1010. It backed off. And then when we didn't get it, man, it really went down. So yesterday was the reignition of that. And what we basically did is we recovered that entire spot back up to that 261, 262 range each
Mm.
day.
Yeah.
So that's my theory, and I'm sticking to it.
Mm. Yeah, we didn't really get much news on the lower price car. They just reaffirmed that it'd be early next year, and they said that 3 months ago, so it's
Right,
nothing new. Like
right.
people lost a little faith on it, and they're hoping that it would be talked about at Robotaxi event. But Tesla reiterated that it'd be the first half of next year. And we're going to talk about the lower price car later.
Right.
Um, but there was quite a bit on the AI front. They expressed optimism that it'll be equal to a human as by the second quarter of next year.
Hmm.
Um, and Elon reiterated that not only is Cybercab a robotaxi, but SX3 and Y. I think we all understood this, but that those all would be a robotaxi, and that they're already starting to run the the cars in an app um, around I don't know, it's Palo Alto or Fremont or maybe both.
Somewhere up around the factory up there. Yeah.
Yeah. So their employees are able to use it. So they're starting to work on the app or continuing work on the app. They do have a safety driver, so it's not fully autonomous. But we don't know how much that safety driver is needed. So they're not like running with an autonomous license in California.
Right.
Um, but they are running with a safety driver. So that was a big positive. They shared that they already saw a 75% boost in their AI compute. I had been saying that with Cortex at Giga Texas, not only will they, use it once it's fully ready, but they're going to use it in stages as they get it ready. And so they confirmed that. So that was some real positive news as well.
Yeah, and the whole business of the what do you want to call it? The disengagements by the end of the year being 1,000 times fewer than at the beginning of 2024. That was crazy numbers. And
Yeah.
they're expecting to do 1,000 times improvement in 2025. And that now there's kind of a Brian Wong last night talked about this at length on the show, that now that is something that they can start to predict. It has some predictive capability now in those numbers. And so that's how they're coming to the conclusion that by, you know, April, May, June, whatever, we should be ready to sleep in the back seat.
And I'll say something radical. I haven't said this. I didn't know I'd be saying this, but prior to version 12, I could not complete a single drive um, from my house to my office, um, in or there and back, and now I'd say it's 1 in 50 drives or so, between 1 in 50 and 1 in 100 drives where I have a safety critical
Wow. Yeah.
disengagement.
Yeah.
So I would actually agree that Tesla's numbers probably are correct there. And I'm starting to look at the how it drives a little differently. Because like Uber drivers mess up, Lyft drivers mess up,
Yeah.
and I'm looking at it how, what would be safety critical? What would be something where you're a passenger in the car and you would really question the driver and be like, what are you doing? What
Right.
are you doing over there?
Right.
Um, so unless it's doing something like that, I'm typically not disengaging over, stylistic stuff. So I would tend to trust Tesla's numbers at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, they certainly got the data. Holy mackerel, do they have the data? So I thought, as usual, we should talk about energy storage with you because that's the area that you're best known for, I think, in terms of
Mhm.
the community, in terms of having expertise that nobody else might have. And he said this in detail. Took the entire quote from the thing here. For the energy business, they're doing extremely well. The opportunity ahead is gigantic. The Lathrop Megapack factory reached 200 megapacks a week, which is now 40 gigawatt hour a year run rate. So fully out, fully maxed. And we now have a second factory in Shanghai that will begin with 20 gigawatt hour run rate in Q1. So 50% of the run rate of Lathrop will already be up and going in Q1. Now, I suspect that means that they're going to do some preliminary ramping in the fourth quarter because the building, I think, is 80% done or something. So they'll probably get a little start on it in the fourth quarter. But he's claiming they're going to punch out 20 gigawatt hours in the first quarter, or 20 gigawatt hour run rate. I'm sorry.
Yeah, run rate. So that would be exiting Q1. I would still be very bullish. So
Yeah.
if they could exit Q1 at that rate, then that means in the second quarter that they should be able to do 5 gigawatt hours from that
At least.
factory.
Yes, at least. Right. And then he says it won't be long, he didn't give a date, before we'll be shipping 100 gigawatt hours a year from in stationary storage at Tesla. And well, will that, I mean, that will ultimately grow, I think, to multiple terawatt hours per year. Now, I have read, I don't know, 50 articles now, probably something like 50 articles about yesterday that have appeared in Yahoo and, go down the list. Nobody mentioned that.
Mhm.
That is a big change. He had said that Tesla would do a terawatt. And I kept talking about that. I think you talked about that. Nobody believed that.
Mhm.
No, really? Isn't that right? Nobody really believed he was shooting for a terawatt of energy storage. Now he says multiple terawatts. Now we're talking about something on the order of $1 trillion a year in energy in sales.
Mhm.
Because we were talking about 300 billion, 400 billion. Now we could be talking about 800 to $1 trillion from energy storage.
Yeah, yeah. I think we all knew that in more like Tesla nerds after Investor Day, that they would need to be at least 2 terawatt hours, if not three, to like really get the circular economy going with batteries and stationary storage, all of that. And perhaps the 2 to 3 terawatt hours includes cars. For him to say for stationary storage alone, that definitely is an upgrade.
Yes.
And what I'm saying, what Giga Shanghai is, 5 gigawatt hours for a whole quarter, so
Right.
that if you could sustain that for a whole quarter in a second quarter, you're gonna do at least 20 over a 12-month period. And this factory should do a lot more once it's fully equipped and geared up. We were surprised by the big increase in gross margin. Both Elon and Zach Kirkhorn and the new CFO have been talking down their gross margins on the energy side.
Right.
Yeah, I've been questioning, okay, where's the cost really?
Right.
Why aren't
For
the
a
gross
long
margins?
time.
Yeah, why aren't the gross margins 50%? So I really shouldn't be surprised, for it to increase from 25 to 30. Um, yeah, it's just surprised that it was happening now. I think we all got a little down on the quarter coming into it. So that was encouraging to see. I'm curious to see if the margins continue to ramp in Megapack before Giga Shanghai gets going. Because if we don't have Giga Shanghai dragging it down from the ramp, you have
Right.
high costs when you're ramping. If it's not dragging down Lathrop, and Lathrop does 9 gigawatt hours, so they just did about 7.
Right.
I'm curious to see if those margins are going to be significantly above 30 and a half or not.
That, as well as the numbers should be going up with even before Shanghai, because the lumpiness will start to smooth out. Now,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean you still won't have quarter to quarter lumpiness. You might go 9 one quarter and 14 the next, but it should be now right around 12, 10 for megapacks plus a couple for power walls. It should be somewhere
Mhm.
around 12 average, and it should be, around that range, going forward just for the US production, not
Mhm.
counting what they're going to do in Shanghai.
Yeah.
So that's going
Yeah.
to be some serious money. That's going to be like 3.6 billion in profits at 30% next year, just for the United States part.
Yeah. It it could get a little nutty where, like, I think Matt was saying the energy side could be like $2 a year in profits or something like that for
Yes.
10 billion, or that would be more than $2 a year, but
Well, 3.6 in just from Lathrop of profit. That
mhm.
would be not a quarter, that'd be a year. And then I'm thinking maybe Shanghai ends up getting somewhere close to half of that next year. Because I think if they're going to already be doing that level of production in the first quarter, I don't see any reason why the second part of the factory won't be able to ramp up,
Mhm.
say the third quarter. So maybe we could be looking at another billion or so in profits out of Shanghai
Yeah.
for the megapacks.
And it was just a slew of positive news. It was kind of strange because Elon was very quiet. The audio quality on the call was terrible. Like it kept on dropping. And like he would say he's excited, but he sounded like Joe Buck when he's excited announcing a game. Like, another team could be like intercepting a pass and scoring a touchdown, and Joe Buck's talking in a normal voice,
Right.
maybe a little louder. And Elon is talking about all this transformative stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm so excited." It's kind of like how I would say it. It's like, come on. But yeah, he was talking about 4680 and how they're very confident their costs are going to be the best out of any potential supplier in the US. So for batteries in the US, 4680 is going to be their best solution. Now they aren't going to say no to the other batteries they're getting from LG, Panasonic, and CATL, but they're confident they're going to get their costs down, which means like the machines are running more quickly. Things are running smoother. Hopefully they get the whole dry battery thing going. And, if things are running that smoothly, then they can really start to scale 4680 globally. And, maybe they would transmit their learnings to all the different battery suppliers like LG and
Yeah.
Panasonic, CATL, maybe not.
Yeah, and of course the key there is, I think, to get to that 100 gigawatts out of Austin. Once they hit that number, which is kind of the initial number that they were shooting for, it should just be kind of, stamp and repeat. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously there's always going to be issues, when you're starting up a line, but I would hope that they'd be able to do it fairly rapidly. Now, there was one thing I was curious about. Again, I didn't grab this part of the transcript.
Oh, hang on one sec.
For
Hang
sure.
on one sec. So if Tesla's getting going on 4680, pretty soon we could see Tesla ramping that in Europe,
Yeah.
and like opening another mega factory in Europe.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. I would certainly think so. In fact, I was going to ask you that, whether you think that there's going to be an announcement soon. Because if you're going to get to terawatts, you start building some factories.
Yeah, it takes a little longer to build things in Europe and other
Yes.
places than it does in China.
Right.
Yeah.
That too. Yeah, so I would definitely think that they've already said they're going to do 50 gigawatt hour battery manufacturing in Berlin.
Mhm.
Never heard a specific number for Shanghai, but I think you and I might have talked about it. I know I've talked about it with Brian Wong and Brian White, that there's 3 buildings there on that lot.
Yeah. It
And I
should be
would
at least 80 there because Elon also talked about how Shanghai, Mega Factory Shanghai was going to triple their mega
battery.
pack capacity. And yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking they might do the battery production in one of those other 2 buildings that they're putting in.
Mhm.
But what I was going to say a minute ago about the 4680 is, what was I going to say? I'll probably think of it in a minute. Um, anyway, okay, let's talk about Robotaxi a little more right now.
Mhm.
Some on the street are saying it will be a slow rollout next year. I don't think it's going to be a slow rollout. I don't know if you and I talked about this, but over half of the Model 3s, of all the sexies, more than
Mhm.
half of the vehicles on the road in the United States are in California.
Yeah.
If there's around 2 million total, there's about 1 million of those in California, maybe more. And then Texas is another pretty big slug of sexy vehicles. Oh, and I guess Cybertrucks could be rented out too on the Robotaxi network. So I don't know what the slow rollout why it would be a slow rollout. It looks to me like we could have, even if it was only 5% of folks like you and me that decided to do it, we could have 50,000 vehicles almost instantaneously out there picking up rides.
Yeah, they only need early adopters to agree to run their cars as robotaxis, and maybe some of the people who have Teslas in California, maybe they're Teslanaires and they don't want anyone else in their car, but I'm guessing there's a lot of Tesla owners in California who would want to pick up some extra money.
And if they don't, then we've talked about this for sure on this show with you, is there's also the entrepreneurial types who will start buying up the used cars and they'll
Mhm.
start are buying new ones if they need to. The people that are driving Uber now, that'll put theirs into the system because they won't have to, they can sit home and watch football
Yeah. And we
instead of
just found out about a new addressable market where the city of Palo Alto came out and they said, our transit system is not affordable. They're using buses and they're not at high enough capacity, and so if they can run robo taxis instead, and they can run them with safety drivers. And this was a council member talking
right.
in front of their council, and Tesla would provide a safety driver, and they could use Palo Alto's license, their transit license, to do all this. So they wouldn't need a special license to run it. Um, then that could get going, and that could provide a model for other cities and towns.
Right.
Because what cities tend to do is they tend, for whatever reason, they tend to design the buses for maximum usage. So like ridership during rush hour,
Mhm.
but then the rest of the time the buses are fairly empty, and you're paying that driver
Mhm.
for a bus that's half full. That wastes gas, it wastes pollution, it wastes money, and so the robotaxi may be a really good solution for these transit systems, which nobody had thought about before this
Right.
week.
Right. And the other part is almost all cities have these vans that go around and pick up the senior citizens and take them to the doctor and stuff. And that would be another case where most of those end up having one or two passengers, at any given time. So a robotaxi would be another perfect solution for that, as long as Granny isn't afraid to get in it.
Yeah. Yeah, there are towns that have mobility for seniors who are like on Social Security and don't really have much resources beyond that. But also senior homes could use it. Hotels could use it for airport shuttles.
Right.
There's all kinds of possibilities.
Yeah. So then I thought that Elon was really, really sandbagging when he said that there will only be a 20 to 30% increase in auto sales next year. Now, typically, he has been so accurate on his auto sales. I mean, I know he's going to do whatever he has to do to get 520,000 cars sold this quarter. He'll get out on the street corner and start hailing people over and selling them one at a time if he has to get to 520 so he could be over last year's number. But he said 20 to 30% next year kind of seemed like a rough estimate instead of his normal kind of precision when it comes to automobile numbers. Can you imagine a scenario next year where every single car that's being made isn't sold if robotaxi and FSD are a thing?
Yeah, you want to buy them up in that scenario. Yeah, so there's two major lines that are not being used. One of them's at Giga Texas, the other one at Giga Berlin.
Right.
So whether that makes the lower cost models that Elon's talking about, or maybe they expand Model Y, but in either case, there's potential for at least like 500,000 more vehicles right there. And that would be a 25% increase. So that would put it like right in the middle of Elon's guidance there. But there's another line that's going in Texas. We don't know if that's for Cybercab or what that's for. Maybe
Yes,
we could talk now about the lower cost model.
that's
And
true. That's true.
we
What
do
about? What about that lower cost model?
Yeah.
What do you think?
And we should talk about them lowering costs during the quarter too.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the lower cost model. So one of the things Elon said on the call that people are latching on to is he talked about taking 20% of the cost out of a car. That is very hard work. And he said that it costs more to do that than to build the factory itself. It's very hard. So that has people thinking that Tesla may offer a lower trim model for the Model 3 and Y.
Mhm.
So, think about the fake leather that's in the 3 and Y today. They could switch that to cloth and they could save some money that way. There's some other things they could do. Um, I'm not sure what.
Well,
I'm not Lars Moravi,
well,
but
fewer speakers is one that always comes to my mind. A little, not quite as good a tire, let's say. So there's a number of things that seem obvious, but the biggest one would be batteries.
yeah.
So using fewer batteries because you don't need the thing to go from 0 to 60 in 3.1.
Yeah, you can do one motor. Tesla already is doing some models of the 3 and Y with one motor, but you could do one motor. Yeah, you could have lower range where it's someone's get around town car, and then maybe that family also has a hybrid or gas car for longer trips, or maybe they have a longer range Tesla for longer trips.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a bunch of stuff you could take out, and you and I had this conversation in the green room. It's like I remember 100 years ago when the Mercedes Model E came out, and everybody was worried that it was going to ruin Mercedes's reputation for being a high class, maker. And so what they did was they made it a little smaller. They made it a little different. It wasn't just interior changes like speakers and cloth. It was a distinctively different vehicle comparatively. One of the things would be paint. You know how much paint costs. So
Yeah.
you can do cheaper paint even. That's a big deal. And a lot of weight too, if you don't do so many coats. So there's a lot of those kind of things you can do to bring down the cost and also make it not lose its luster, let's say, with the folks that can afford, a $50,000 car. So, but I'm thinking you need, I don't think it's, I don't know anything about it because I've never had a auto manufacturing business, but
Mhm.
just to go to a hatchback, that gives it a completely distinctive look.
Yeah, for the Model 3,
Model
it would
3
change the look. Yeah.
change the look, and that would be a big difference.
Mhm.
So anyway, I don't know, you don't know, but it's going to be interesting to see what does happen.
Yeah.
But I don't think I don't think it will be something that will be indistinguishable to a quick glance between the 3 and the Y and this new thing.
Mhm.
That's just me from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah. What really shocked me was how much Tesla was able to strip out of the cost of making their vehicles. They did a call out to Shanghai that apparently a lot of this came from Shanghai, but the continued engineering that they're doing to reduce costs is rather remarkable and surprised many folks.
I'm going to, I've talked about this already on the show. I want to talk about it with you. And tomorrow morning, people will want to check out. AJ is going to be on the show again tomorrow morning, and he and I are going to go through a detailed fourth quarter analysis. People are not paying attention to something I've been talking about for a very, very, very long time, and that is the IRA money.
Mhm.
Okay, so part of what's happening here, there's $100 million in IRA money for the Cybertruck alone in the third quarter. It's almost $5,000 per vehicle. It's 123 kilowatt hours at $45 a kilowatt hour. So it's
Mhm.
over $5,000, well over $5,000 per vehicle times 16,000, I think 16,700 vehicles. You're almost to $100 million.
Mhm.
That's right out of cost of goods sold.
Yeah.
And there isn't, I can't find anything in the 10Q about that. I can't find anything in the slide deck. There's nothing about that. And I think it's because Tesla doesn't want to give the Tesla Q folks one more thing to talk about in terms of government subsidies.
Tesla Q doesn't like it when things go well for Tesla. And yeah, they were trying to make it seem like an increase in accounts payable. So
Right.
they had record deliveries, I think,
Yes.
at least for a third quarter. And so when your deliveries are going up, the amount you owe suppliers is going to go up.
Yeah.
And the number of days of supply went up, but are still those days of supply were still lower than what they are for GM.
Right.
Um, as
Wait a
far
minute.
as
Wait a
how quickly they pay suppliers. So like Tesla is doing so well, they get paid by the customer
minute.
faster than Tesla owes the money to the supplier.
Yes.
And that's really meaningful.
That was always my goal in business. Every business I started, I always wanted to see if there was any way I could get paid before I had to pay. So it's always a very good idea. So the other thing on the cost of goods side was the FSD take rate.
Mhm.
That's a big impact. So that's, you have maybe a little more of the money being like the FSD money on the Cybertruck wasn't counted in the first 3 quarters of this year, first 2 quarters of this year. Now,
Mhm.
all of a sudden, it's on the truck. So they got to start counting that. So there's
Mhm.
little things like that that amount to
Yeah.
significant dollars. Uh,
That might have juiced returns a bit for this quarter, so I wouldn't be surprised to see gross margins lower in automotive next quarter. And even the CFO warned that profits may be lower in the fourth quarter due to product mix, is what he said.
right.
Yeah, but they deserve to be able to release that reserve. And also, like when you look at the deferred revenues, and AJ had a good post, so
Yeah.
it's a Joe on Twitter, ALOJOH. Um, and he showed that deferred revenue essentially stayed the same,
Yeah.
versus a year ago for both current deferred revenue and longer term deferred revenue. They stayed very similar. So even if they might have recognized more in the Cybertruck, um, it's not like they were spiking profits or anything for the
Yeah.
quarter.
Exactly. And in fact, he called, or I guess was Larry the first one to call it the honeypot?
Oh.
Because Larry brought it up really like a couple of years ago. He was already
Mhm.
talking about how much money that was sitting there for instance, in the what do you call it? The 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 amount that's being set aside for future repairs on when
Yeah,
people
the warranty reserves. Yeah.
reserves were so much too high. And that was
Mhm.
another honeypot that at some point they should be able to collect from that honeypot. So yeah, there's a bunch of those. There's like four, counting that, that are eventually, well, I don't guess they ever completely go. Well, I guess FSD will eventually completely go away. That honeypot will be gone when you can drive, when you can sleep in your car, then they'll, I'm sure, grab the rest of that money in that quarter.
Yeah,
The
the
deferred,
deferred aspect of it would go away for sure. Yeah.
right? Doesn't,
Or, the people do say like if they have to continue work on it, maybe they won't recognize all of it. But when you have the subscription, they're going to recognize it.
right.
Um, so yeah, they're recognizing a higher percentage. And Matt Smith on our Rebellion Air channel, he did some work on the take rate and looked into some numbers and some
Oh,
hints that Tesla gave, and he thinks that the take rate may have gone up to 14%
wow.
potentially. I don't know if that's globally. I
Yeah.
think so.
Okay.
Um, so based off of those numbers, that the take rate may have increased that much.
Yeah, and I think this is what I'm going to be doing this weekend. I keep saying I'm going to do it this week. I said I was going to do it last weekend. I want to do a 4-quarter analysis for next year. And all the things that we've just been talking about just get better next year. The take rate on FSD gets better. The money coming in from the IRA gets, continues to increase because 4680 production continues to increase. Plus the CATL line that we're putting in Reno will also get that $45. So there's a bunch of stuff like that that is just going to continue to drop to the bottom line in terms of cost of goods sold, as well as in some cases increasing revenues. So these are things that most people are not reporting on or even paying attention to.
Mhm.
That are sneaky little things that add up to a lot of money. So
I guess we still are in on a secret, aren't we?
we continue to have an arbitrageable secret. Yes. All right. So you were wanting to talk about the big advances in AI this week, outside of the Tesla world, that we have some increases, so some big deals, some big
Yeah.
yeah.
So Anthropic, they came out with a thing that developers can test where essentially their AI controls your computer and it could do various things like open up web windows, type stuff in, it could do coding. And it's just wild to see the video of it. So essentially, they had a use case where they were coordinating with a friend for a sunrise at the Golden Gate Bridge. And so it looked up the weather, it looked up the traffic times, it used a calendar, I don't know if it wrote an email or not, but is able to do all these things where it can actually click the mouse on a part of your screen to do the work.
Yeah.
Um, so this is something that's fairly new. They're not the only ones doing this, but to make it something that developers can play around with was pretty wild and eye-opening.
And I saw one person responding to, I think it was, I forget who was showing that particular video, but one person responded and says, I don't like this at all.
Uh,
I guess the idea, if the agent can take over my screen, then maybe somebody else, can take over my screen.
mhm.
So, but yeah, I mean, this is where we get into the fun part of this new world of AI is whether the bad guys are going to. I've had I'd love to even talk about this for a minute because I think it'd be good to tell everybody that's listening about this if they haven't gotten it already. Twice in the last 3 days, I have received phone calls, local phone calls,
Mhm.
my area code. One of them said Bank of America was who was calling. The other one said it was Citibank that was calling from my area code. And
Mhm.
the person got on the, and so I answered. When the person got on the line, they're like, well, did you know that your account you don't do that much traveling. And we noticed that you just had some kind of a bill come in from Texas or whatever. You think that's fraudulent? This is the fraud department of Bank of America. And I could tell by the terrible capability of speaking that these people had and their
Mhm.
inability to even phrase things well, that this was probably, they were the frauds.
Mhm.
But I don't even know how the heck they are able to use a local number and actually get it to show Bank of America on there. That was pretty scary for people that are not going to be aware.
Yeah, I don't want to give anyone ideas, but I think I have an idea on that.
How that
But
does.
um, yeah, it's you have to be really careful and typically I don't think a bank is going to call you for that. And they might give you a phone number, but really what you need to do is you can try calling them directly, but you maybe go to their website directly. But now there's these scams where they'll take over the Google searches and they'll somehow like insert themselves high up in Google. So if you search for something in Google, like this fraudulent link can sometimes come up.
Oh, wow.
Um, so yeah, it's tricky. If the bank is wanting you to log into your account and to show it to you on your local computer, that's fraudulent.
That's
If,
definitely a
if
problem.
yeah, if they want you to go to a gas station, buy gift cards, and to pay them that way, or to pay them in crypto, that's definitely fraudulent. Um, yeah, you just need to be, I think, very suspicious. I'm not really taking many local calls anymore because I'm getting more and more things, and the more you talk to them, here's the scary thing: is the more you talk to them, the more they're recording your voice, and then they could
Oh,
use
yeah.
that on
Oh,
one of your relatives.
oh, yeah. I've heard about that as well. Scary, scary times. What do you think, Mr.
So I'll just say this:
Yes.
I don't think it's. I would view AI as like a tool to be used or exploited for good,
Right.
to your benefit. So instead of like being like, this is kind of scary stuff, or yeah, I'm worried what people could do to me, or I might be left behind. I would look at it like, how can I use AI to make my life easier, to solve some problems for me, or educate me on some things. That's how I would try to think about it.
Sure. So now that we've had this big run up, the second biggest run up ever in a single day for Tesla. Last time was, I think, 2017. I forget, long time ago. It went up 25% in one day. So this is only the second best day ever. What happens tomorrow? And the next day, Monday.
Well, the fundamental news was materially better, and did put a lot of doubts and concerns to rest, at least for now. Um, and I think I gotta sneeze soon. People were very pessimistic coming into this call.
Yeah,
Um, so I think people were caught surprised by that. And give me one moment here.
sure.
So my opinion is there's probably people who may want to get back into the stock. Maybe they're playing around with Nvidia or some other things. Maybe they were sitting in cash and they want to get back in, but they didn't do it today. They're like, I
Right,
don't want to pay 10% more, 20% more. Um, I want to get in at a discount. I want to buy the dip, right?
right.
So then they're going to wait till tomorrow. So tomorrow morning, depending on how it opens, if it opens higher, you might see a smaller push tomorrow,
Hmm.
which is Friday.
Hmm.
And then there's going to be people who take even longer to pull the trigger and are going to think about it over the weekend. Maybe they talk to some relatives, and um, then they'll wait to see how things open up on Monday. And if there's a positive open, there could be like a FOMO
Right, right.
that happens on Monday where it spikes up in the morning. Um,
After a
so
22%, after a 22% move, are the shorts all out already? Or could there still be shorts that are going to be squeezed in
Yeah,
the
the shorts wouldn't be 100% out. Yeah, they wouldn't be forced out by that kind of move
right,
yet.
right,
There's some that might have like discipline around it, where they might be out, but there might be some folks who are a little more emotional, or they're just more deliberate, and they take more than a day to figure it out, and they could have their hand forced if the stock continues to march a bit on Friday and Monday.
So, my
And
statement,
that's overly
yes,
specific,
yes.
so I'm likely to be wrong.
Well, I got today exactly right. So honest to God, my video this morning, I said, we'll go right back to 261. What do I know? But it just seemed like that's
Mm,
what people thought it was worth before 1010. That's what they should think of
yeah.
now. Anyway, went back to 261. I agree with Larry Goldberg, who rarely makes these kind of guesses, but he thinks this goes back to 300 now, not necessarily tomorrow, but I think that we now have the reasons, all the
Mm.
fundamental and foundational reasons are there to go back to 300. And then I think we need a couple of more catalysts to really break through solidly beyond 300. But that's kind of where I am right now. What kind of catalysts do you think could move the stock?
I'm not sure after today. It's
Yeah,
just a lot of positives in the automotive side.
right. I think that obviously any kind of reveals.
Yeah,
We get,
version 13, you know, Ashok was dead on accurate about
yeah,
all these things they were going to do in September. So version 13
should be next
uh,
week.
should be or could be likely to be in October. So we just got a week left. And if it's materially better, Elon said 5x.
Yeah, yeah,
I think if it is 5x, we'll notice.
right.
Um, and so we already got end to end on the highway. Highway's already improved. There's more improvements that need to be made. So that could be a catalyst, like seeing FSD get materially better over the next few months, and having that added compute. Tesla's gonna do good
Yeah,
things with that compute.
yeah. Well, all right, Bradford. This is you said this is not just good news.
This
Um,
is great news
this is great
Thursday.
news Thursday. Amazing news Thursday. All right, well, we'll let you go and we'll continue with the numbers here after you've clicked off. And thank you as always for coming on and helping us out. Bye for now. All right, so what happened today with the stock market in general? Well, the stock market in general, it paid attention to what was happening with Tesla. So the Nasdaq was up 138.83, while the Dow continued down for the fourth day in a row, down 140.59. S&P up 12.44. And the Magnificent Seven was all up except for Apple, but it was just barely down. So it's kind of like everybody just kind of followed along Tesla as it was going just like this all day long. So somebody asked me, by the way, why I follow the Cathie Wood stocks. And because the Cathie Wood stocks as a block are all similar. They're disruptive companies. They're startups, or they're maybe in their first 10 years. But they're very disruptive. They need, because they're smaller, they need cash, and so they have to borrow. Because they have to borrow, when bonds move one way or the other, it impacts their stock price. Moreover, because their valuation is also going to be affected by bond prices, because that's you look at the interest rate in order to do a present value on their current on their current earnings, or their future earnings. Then the bond prices affect their value as well. So I look at the Cathie Woods as a block in order to kind of look at that entire category, because Tesla has kind of been in that block almost as much as is in the Magnificent Seven block, because it is so growing so fast. Now it doesn't need cash, but when people value the current value, part of it is based on a discount for a discount of future earnings capability. All right, so that's why I do that. By the way, the Cathie Woods were mixed today, mostly up, and those that were down were just down a little bit. So kind of like the Magnificent Seven in a similar way. All right. Percentages. I'm sorry. The percentages on today were the Dow down 0.33%, NASDAQ up 0.76, S&P up 21.21, and Tesla up 21.92. I think we could round that up to 22%. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the bonds now, which did contract today. Finally, the yields contracted, the bonds went up, so it was a little bit of a recovery there. And so, but now the yields are back up a little bit in the pre-market. We're sitting at 4.206 with a 0.4% increase in the pre-market. If you look at the rest of the 2-year is also up 1.1 basis points in the pre-market, and the 3-month up 2.7, the 2-month up 0.5 basis point. So generally speaking, we're continuing to see the bonds very high priced, very high yields right now, and that continues to give us a question about whether the Fed will in fact go through with their change in the interest rate on November 5th. But the betting markets are still at 87%. So yeah, I guess the betting markets are not paying any attention to what the bond people are maybe thinking. Let's go ahead to the oil. We've got oil up 22, the Texas Intermediate up 22 cents. That is $70.41. Brent at 74.38. Natural gas up marginal a little bit, 0.4% in the pre-market to $2.53. Now that's back up again. So natural gas is starting to make a move up. We want natural gas to stay, we wanted to stay above 2.25 for the poor Texas oil people, but we wanted to stay down as much as possible so that our bill for our heating this winter is low. All right, we've got gold down $2.10 in the pre-market, but it's still sitting at 27.46, very close to all-time high. Silver at 33.83, again, right at the recent all-time high. Copper up 0.3, strong, 4.36. That's a strong number. The dollar slightly down, very, very slightly down. I would call it pretty much unchanged in the pre-market. But it's been up. It's been at recent highs. Bitcoin up 19.15 today at 68,153. That's a strong move for Bitcoin. And then here we go with the equities for tomorrow morning. I'm going to save you some time and me some voice because I'm losing my voice here. We're flat. It's no direct, slightly down, but so slightly that it's not worth reporting. Did I tell you what Tesla was doing for tomorrow? Yes, down a bit in the after hours, 1.17%. It's around $3. Okay, so that's where Tesla is right now in the after hours market for the stock. Okay, tomorrow morning we've got AJ. You want to be here for that? When I say tomorrow morning, around 11 o'clock California time, AJ will be on. Normal show tomorrow morning, for the after the bell, and then Larry Goldberg, of course, in the afternoon to help me bring in hopefully another great news Friday. So until then, as always, let's see, earlier today, the video, I did Jeff Lutz. I'll put that card right up here. If you didn't see what Jeff Lutz had to say about yesterday, you definitely want to go check that one out as well. By the time we get AJ in here and Larry, you'll have quite a set of understandings about what is going on with Tesla after that amazing earnings call. Now it's time to say goodbye. It's been great talking to you.